Hey Jexiteers, thanks again for stopping by. If you're new to the channel, my name is Riley and I'm a former Jehovah's Witness. Today's video is a video with a difference. I recently was a guest on a podcast. The host of the podcast is an ExJW by the name of Beau Fair. He's been a guest on the Lloyd channel before. He's a former elder and he has a podcast called Armageddon in Retrospect. So he invited me on as a guest onto his podcast, and we recorded an episode together, and he graciously agreed for me to use the recording as a video on my own channel. So that's the video you're about to see. I've left links in the description to his podcast. You should definitely check that out. It's very, very informative and entertaining as well. So this is the episode. It's all about living a double life while being a Jehovah's Witness. I really hope you enjoy it.
All right, Riley. So today we're talking about having a double life, living a double life. You and I, we were talking a little bit before. It's not something that's unique to being a Jehovah's Witness. Obviously, there's people that have never been a part of the Watchtower that have double lives or a secret life that they're not sharing with those around them. And I think you'd probably agree that typically a double life, if it can be avoided, it's a good idea, because it's not healthy necessarily to have two different personas going at the same time in our heads, or two different lives going at the same time. But I think it'd be really interesting to kind of talk about Watchtower as like a driver of the double life, like their part in it that they fail to recognize. And I just, maybe if you want to start out just talking about kind of your experience with it, whatever you want to share, and then maybe I'll follow up with some of my experience around having a double life.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I guess I should start off by saying that I was raised in the truth from about the age of 2 years old. Got married very young, age 21, to another witness. And we had, our ups and downs. It was quite turbulent at times. And I guess around 2013, that's when I really started having doubts about the religion. The doubts arose out of problems I was having in my marriage, and how the elders who tried to give assistance, how they dealt with that. And it started to show cracks to me, cracks in the elder arrangement, cracks in the way the organization is run, cracks in the advice for marriage and just general life advice. I just no longer believed that it was practical. And also some of the advice that the elders gave, it didn't help, and in some cases it actually made things worse. So but at the same time, I still had to play the role of the family head and take the family out on the ministry and prepare for field service and do the family worship and all of those things while I'm having these doubts and while I'm not 100% sold on the council anymore. It was really, really difficult. It was extremely difficult. There were times at the Kingdom Hall where I was only there in body. My mind was completely somewhere else. A couple of times I got caught browsing Facebook on my phone. I just wasn't mentally invested in it anymore. And it was
that's kind of like the what they refer to in the ExJW community as a PMO. You're physically in, you're mentally out, and that, obviously it's like you start kind of breaking into two separate people right there, right? But the doubting side of you, the questioning side, had to be kind of kept put away, right? Like you can't expose it, or you can expose it, but it comes with a high cost. But it kind of, I think most of us, when we started doubting, just kind of what you're saying is we keep that quiet, keep that to ourselves, and we have our own mental world happening that's kind of disconnected from physically sitting in the Kingdom Hall.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. There were a couple of times where I found it really difficult not to walk out of the Kingdom when they were speaking about certain subjects, or when certain brothers were on a platform. There was one sister in particular, and I loved this sister dearly. She was like a second mum to me, and she had a lot of health issues. Which was really sad. Really bad health issues. And whenever the topic of discussion at the Kingdom, well, not really discussion because it's always one way, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
At the Kingdom Hall was about trials. She would always make a point of saying, when we're going through trials, we shouldn't pray for the trial to end. We should only pray for the strength to endure it. And that would always rub me up the wrong way. I'm not exaggerating by saying it angered me every time I heard that comment or comments like that. Because it's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, why would you have a trial and not want it to end?
Right.
And in my mind, I couldn't see how that was any different to the Catholic practice of flagellation. You know, intentionally going through pain because that somehow brings you closer to God. I saw that as being the witness version of flagellation, and I just hated it. And the reason I hated it so much is because when I would approach the elders with certain problems that were going on in my marriage, they would just tell me to endure and send me away. It was an extremely dismissive attitude. It was just like, endure, just endure. I was like, I don't want to just endure. I want the problem to end. You know, I don't want to just endure. You know, so I found that extremely difficult. It took every fiber of strength in my being not to walk out when I heard things like that.
Yeah, definitely. So it's just like it's kind of just at the time, right? It's just a form of suppression. It's like you have those feelings bubbling up and you keep pushing it down. I think that's part of the training too. You know, it's kind of like just keep quiet, nod along. You know, clap when you're supposed to clap, laugh when you're supposed to laugh. You know, stand when you're supposed to stand, sit when you're supposed to. Everything. You know, it's just like it's interesting. So I like that perspective as far as after waking up, the double life that takes place. And I understand, I think both of us understand, some people with families and situations, they have to at least spend some time in that phase of kind of having that double life, because just the consequences for speaking up and breaking out of the mold can be so high, especially if you are a father with children, a husband, you're taking care of your aging Jehovah's Witness parents, all these situations that arise. Some people are forced probably to stay in a situation longer than they want to, which is sad, but also like understandable that they're, you know, sometimes you do sacrifice yourself for family. So I'm not, you know, by talking about double life, we're not pushing that aside. That's obviously part of it, but my perspective, I went through that phase after waking up for a little bit, where I continued to attend the Kingdom Hall and sit in on the meetings. I remember having the same experience of just wanting to get up and walk out, but just kind of sitting there and pushing through. But my double life, I kind of just want, like, I didn't have anything too crazy in my teenage years. But I did have somewhat of a double life where I was trying to make friends with some schoolmates. Just when I started becoming a teen, I eventually got pulled out in homeschools, so that didn't become an issue. But then I went to work, and I started, when I got a job, the same thing with workmates, right? Like I wanted to spend time with them. So I remember sneaking around, trying to just sneak out to go to a movie, or just, you know, you just had to get sneaky about phone calls or who's going to call the house or whatever. You just had to plan everything. My music, I remember I got into rap music and heavy metal. I would try to keep all that hidden away from my parents and just not, you know, be found out for that. Just some other stuff. I think like underage drinking was an issue in our area with a lot of the Jehovah's Witnesses. So there was all these like kind of, it wasn't just me, it was a lot of the teens in the congregation at that same time. We all had the Kingdom Hall life, and then the outside the Kingdom Hall, like social life that we were, you know, I'm not obviously a proponent of underage drinking, but it was just like, we were all just trying to kind of do stupid teenage stuff, to put it that way, outside the Kingdom Hall and not be caught. And not have our parents find out. So I definitely went to that phase. And I think going forward from there, like I did try to become a good witness, but even then I found I like personally still had like these secret things going on within me. Some of it was doubts, some of it was questions I just kept to myself, didn't talk about. But especially like I was an elder, and I'm open about this. I was an elder, and I also looked at pornography, which is like a form of a double life, right? Like you're like this beacon of holiness when you're at the Kingdom Hall, and I was giving public talks and assembly parts and regional convention or district convention at the time parts and teaching elder school or whatever it was. And then in the backside was like this, this secret thing going on, the shameful thing in the background that obviously the witnesses consider dirty or inappropriate. And so that was like, even though in my head, I tried to justify that, like how could this happen, but I found that, I mean, in my case, like it got to the point where I was suicidal. That's how, like, I didn't know how to confess and lose everything and kind of get my secret out to get rid of this division running through the middle of my life, and I just think it's something that, and maybe you want to speak this a little bit, but I think it's something that happens because of the rules and the culture within the organization a lot of the time.
Absolutely.
And like
especially when it comes to sexual matters, there's such a huge stigma. I mean, I do understand from the Jehovah's Witness perspective, from the doctrine, but after waking up and realizing that it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, and things that you yourself believe were wrong according to Jehovah's Witness doctrine, you no longer have a good reason for feeling or seeing them as being wrong.
Right.
I mean, sexual repression is such a huge issue with Jehovah's Witnesses, especially for people who were brought up in the religion and in the culture. It just wound up so tight in every single possible way.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
that's bound to be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. I mean, all the rules around, whether it's masturbation or pornography or, like you said, any other type of sex, and just the fact that all that's made so shameful and so dirty, and then that really drives secrecy. And so of course, no one's talking openly about sexuality or their masturbation habits or the fact they look at pornography. And I think I think it makes the habits worse, right? Because it's like I don't want to use the word addiction, but the habit, and you try to force that into secrecy. Typically, it doesn't help you with the habit. It doesn't help you break free of it. If you want to break free of it, you know what I mean? I'm not speaking out against masturbation or pornography here, but I'm just saying in general, it could be, I've known witnesses with drinking habits or whatever it is, drug habits. And so much of that gets, people are so afraid to speak up about it. And it just kind of forces people to make that double life. And then on top of it, once you throw disfellowshipping as a practice in the mix, it just it seems almost like an impossible bar to get over, like I know for myself, like I was deathly afraid of being disfellowshipped, and that's why I was like, I don't want to get found out, I don't want to get caught, this has to be kept secret at all costs. Whereas if you had like more of a, even if you want to take it from a religious viewpoint, if you had a more like healthy type of confession where there wasn't the threat of losing all your family and friends, it would it would definitely take a big, you might still experience some shame and embarrassment around the topic, but at least it would take a huge weight off your shoulder as far as that threat.
Absolutely. I mean, there's such a heavy emphasis on judgment in the Jehovah's Witness religion. Such a heavy emphasis on judgment, and when I was a witness, I understood that, but I didn't see it as a problem, really. I mean, when I compared other Christian religions that were all about love and forgiveness, and I'm ashamed to admit it now, I saw that as being, well, they just want an excuse to be able to do what they want. That's the way I saw it. That's my old my old JW mindset.
Right. Yeah. No, I had the same exact thought too. They're just they just want to make an excuse to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very common way of thinking about it. I think that the what you point out about the whole thing about judgment is just, and that permeates. It's not just when you meet with the elders, right? It actually permeates the congregation a lot of times, where
Oh yeah.
everybody's kind of prying and spying and has their eye on everybody else, and are very willing to pass judgment. So it's just like people. That's just another thing again that just kind of, if you have something that you just feel like might not go over that well within the group, you just keep it to yourself, or keep it put to one side, just because.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's just that judgment just kind of goes through everything.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a tweet the other day from an ExJW, and he said that the whole time he was a witness, he was never ever afraid of Satan and the demons, but he was absolutely terrified of Jehovah.
Wow.
And
yeah.
Myself, you know what? That's true of me as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's true of me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there was a level of superstition about Satan and demons, endemic within the religion. Everyone has that, but I never ever felt afraid. Oh, I better not do this, because if Satan sees, he's going to try and do this. He was going to try and do that. But I felt that about Jehovah. I was absolutely terrified of Jehovah. But I wasn't so scared of Satan. And Satan's supposed to be bad.
Yeah. That's a great point. Actually, I hadn't really completely thought about that. I think for me, I lived in fear of just being found out. It wasn't even like a fear of Jehovah as much as it was a fear of the group. The group of people around me that it was just like, could be terrifying sometimes. Just think, what if these people found out who I really was, or what I was doing? Would any of them still be my friends or like me? And it's just that, almost like that imposter syndrome you're living with. So yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I was looking through the Watchtower Library, kind of just and thinking about this, and it's just, no specific articles, but there's just obviously tons of articles based on double lives. Obviously, a lot of them are pointed at young people, like the Young People Ask articles, where it's like about dating in secret, or hanging out with people in secret, or having a secret life, or whether it's around sexuality. They just put tons of emphasis on not living a double life. And of course, sometimes they'll apply that to adults, but I think it's mostly aimed, what I was looking at is teenagers. And I think it's interesting, again, that they never ask themselves, why is this an issue? Like, why is this an issue within the organization? It's like they talk about it, they condemn it, but they never, this is like standard for them. They never look at themselves and say, what's our role in a teenager wanting to date in secret? And then they would quickly probably start coming up with some answers. Well, it's the rules on dating, right? Either they're too young, they're not past the bloom of youth, as they like to say. They're or they want to date someone from school that's not a fellow Jehovah's Witness, right? So they have all these rules set up, and they cannot, like, they have no there's nothing, they can't reflect on their own actions ever, and the fact that they are actually driving people to want to live a double life. They I don't know, like, as far as other families, but I remember my family growing up with my parents, I didn't feel that that sense of I could communicate with my parents about anything. You know what I mean? Like having a elder father, and my mother was also Jehovah's Witness. And not only, I mean, this is just my personal experience, having an elder father is like, there's kind of that authority figure already as a father, and then on top of it, he's an elder. And then on top of it, it gets turned on you as a kid that if you mess up, you can cause your father to lose his position, which is like so much pressure to put on a kid, like.
I never had to have that, because my dad was never appointed, but I can't even imagine the pressure that would create on a young person. I don't even want to think about it.
So that was always playing itself out. Like I just felt like you couldn't just, I know, again, it's not just Jehovah's Witness that this issue, but just there was the communication just didn't feel like it could be a free flow of communication about what I had going on. I never felt like I'd go up to my dad and be like, "Hey, Dad, I'm masturbating," for example. It's just like I never like it never came up, and it was like never discussed. And it was like that was like just whatever. I was not gonna get discussed in my household because it's like, and on top of it, right? There's always that chance for if you bring something like that to your parents, like does it stop there?
Exactly. Or do they take you to the elders?
Or do I need to go to like well then there's gonna be more questions. It's like how much is this gonna escalate? So I just found that for myself, just all those pieces of the puzzle at play, just made me kind of again just like split into two people. Just like I had what was going on here in the background, and then here I'm a Jehovah's Witness at the Kingdom Hall. I'm going out preaching, all that stuff. And I found like it was pretty depressing as a teenager. It's you're kind of getting the life squeezed out of you, getting kind of tamped down. Like you have your personality, you have things you want to experience, you have things you want to figure out, but they're constantly trying to shove that down. I just feel like for a lot of us, it found a way to express itself.
Absolutely.
But it just had to be. It was always in secret. It was a secret. That's it. Yeah.
I mean, I've I mean, you will have your experience of this yourself. After you leave such a strict, high control religion as the Witnesses, when you come out, you go through a period of trying to learn or discover what your new beliefs are. You go through a period of that, and I'm still going through that myself. But I've come to realize now that you can't really suppress, your inner motivations and, tendencies. They're not things that you can suppress. If you have tendencies or motivations or inclinations that are unhealthy, I think a much better way of dealing with it is try to find what really is the root cause of those things. And then try to fulfill that in another way, in a way that is healthy. You can't just, I mean, it's like, a dam, a crack is going to appear, eventually. And then that's just going to undermine the whole thing, and all of that water that has just been held back for goodness knows how long is just going to burst and cause a whole lot of destruction.
Definitely have leveled a few cities, and
that's right. Instead of trying to hold back natural, forces like that, try to work with them or try to reroute them, not try to stop them. It's not possible in the long term, I don't think.
No, I think you're right. And I think that like even you and I are kind of examples of that, right? Like we tried to hold on for as long as we could, probably, and just like again, just like you were talking, you try to like play along and go with it, but eventually it just keeps building and building and building until it's like I can't, like, these days, like I can't even think about stepping foot in the Kingdom Hall. It's like, just like I'm like, done. Not that I'd be welcome there anyways at this point, but so probably don't have to worry about that. But the I think that's a good way of thinking about it, kind of that the idea, the metaphor of a dam, just I always put it to like, I always call it like a shelf. Like you keep putting things on the shelf, eventually the shelf just falls off the wall. It's kind of very similar. So that happens. But I've so since kind of leaving, I've definitely found that it's pretty amazing when you can when you start rebuilding your social circle, and you can actually have things that you had suppressed for your whole life as a witness that are perfectly okay in your new social setting. I found like there's so much relief in just being able to just be like transparent and open with the people around you, And in my case, even within my Jehovah's Witness marriage that ended, I didn't, even with my wife, who's supposed to be the most intimate person in your life, I didn't even feel comfortable there expressing myself or talking about my doubts or, whatever it is, I just felt like there was so many topics that just felt like they were completely off limit and just, got put away. So to be able to just you know, I don't know what your experience with this is, but to just be able to meet people, connect with people, and realize I can just be myself.
Yeah.
And there's not all this judgment. There's not people tell me what to do or what to think necessarily. You know, what's your like? Have you experienced that too?
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember once I was having a conversation with my ex, and I mentioned that. I mean, it was kind of a sensitive conversation because we were talking about our problems. But I can't remember exactly how I got onto this subject, but I remember saying I reckon that somewhere in the Elders Manual, which I'd never seen at the time,
Mm-hmm.
I felt that there was something in the Elders Manual that prevented the elders from counseling sisters unless they'd committed a serious sin. I was drawing on from my own experience in that because of the way that they dealt with us and our problems. So I said, yeah, I don't think the elders are supposed to counsel sisters unless they've committed a serious sin. I was wrong. I mean, there's nothing in the elders manual that says that, but
Mm-hmm.
I was drawing on my own experience. The very next thing she said was, have you been looking at apostate websites?
Yes, yeah.
That was the very I'd never ever gone near an apostate website by this time,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
It's from now where I actually have one.
Yeah.
but at that time, I've never been anywhere near.
You come a long way. You come a long way.
Yeah, come a long way.
Definitely.
I've never been anywhere near an apostate website, and that,
Yeah.
you know, I was being honest about the doubts I was having about the organization and the elder arrangement and that. And if that was the first thing she thought, I never ever mentioned any of my doubts ever again after that. You know, I just didn't feel that I could without attracting undue suspicion.
Right. I mean, I had kind of a little bit of a similar experience with my ex in the case that I like she would walk in on me looking at old Watchtower articles in Watchtower Library, and it was like literally like she walked in on me like cheating on her. That's how she's like, what are you doing? Oh, yes, I'm on Watchtower Library looking some stuff up. Like, why are you in the 1950s? So I want to see what was said back then. Why are you reading like? And then it was like, only read it. You're not supposed to read it with the wrong motives. You're reading it with the wrong motives. You have to read it. You're trying to find fault. And it was just like, but it was, you know, just kind of that you couldn't just
There's
have
no
like
reasoning.
no reasoning, no conversation. And so I just felt like even within the Jehovah's Witness marriage, I just felt like I had the double life going again. It was just like that same thing was happening where I had my own private thoughts, all the stuff I was keeping held within and just not talking about, you know, or mentioning just, you know, and again, I know like this could happen in any marriage where the communication breaks down, but I just think that there's such an emphasis on, and I remember I actually had a friend, an elder friend, when I started expressing doubts, and he met with me and he actually said these words to me. He said, I have a lot of doubts about the organization, but I would never share them with my wife because I don't want to undermine her faith. And that I was like, wow, like I think, are you listening to yourself? Because it's like you're talking about your wife. Like, why wouldn't you? At that point, of course, I was mentally awake and everything. I'd realized what was going on, but it just it's just kind of that the organization just drives that type of thinking, you know. And I think that again, just one of the joys about leaving is just actually figuring yourself out. You know, at first you get the existential rug pulled from underneath you. You know, you're like, who am I? What am I doing here? What does my future look like? You know, and if you're disfellowshipped or you're just in my case disassociated, then it's like, okay, my whole social circle that I knew my whole life is gone, and it's like this fresh start, and it's a little frightening in the beginning, to be honest, you know, but then it's cool. Just like, I'm just going to build my life the way I want to build my life.
Yeah.
And I don't, I don't have to hide any of it or keep it secret or tucked away. Like I can just surround myself with people who are okay with me the way I am, you know, the whole thing, not, you know, sections or parts of me, you know, or some type of like, almost like a mask you're wearing when you go to the Kingdom Hall, you know, to appear a certain way.
Exactly.
And I think for people listening, maybe that are like physically and mentally out, for whatever, reason that is. That's understandable. But I think, as scary as it can be to be like fully leave, if that door opens up to you and it's safe to do, I just think it's pretty incredible. On the other side of all the loss and the fear and all of that, it's life is pretty good, and I think that even just like our own, in my case, my own mental health improved greatly, just by not trying to be two different people all the time. And it just reminds me of like, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but there was a quote by an author who said, each person consists of two people, the one they show to the world and then the one they actually are. And the less difference there is between the two, the happier you are.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. I completely agree with that.
So, and yeah, just everything, just the life in general is just, it has its challenges, but I think if you can just kind of show up as yourself as much as possible and present that to the world and roll with it, So
I mean, there's such a heavy emphasis in the organization about not stumbling others, and what was that scripture again? All things are lawful, but not all things are advantageous.
Right.
And that's used as like a way of making us censor ourselves. So there's something that we might want to do that isn't necessarily wrong, but we shouldn't do it because of the way it's going to affect the people. And we were taught that was like the height of being considerate, but it's anything but. It's really, really damaging, and we were taught to, you look at the world and you think the world is just full of selfish people who don't care about anybody else or care about how their actions affect other people. And you just saw the worldly people. I hate saying that. Just saw non-witnesses as being these awful, selfish people. But there is a lot to be said about taking care of yourself to the extent that you're not doing things that undermine your own mental health. And I think at the end of the day, that's all it is. It's just that witnesses have such an extreme black and white, dichotomous way of thinking, that everything is just pushed to the extreme. So if somebody, wants to take care of their own mental health, I believe that the buzz term is self-care or self-love. The extreme view of that is just selfishness, and it's not necessarily true.
Yeah. I know there's so many scriptures they just trot out on. They love to beat that drum. Even the Christ didn't please himself.
Exactly.
Just like
exactly.
But it is a constant like distrust of yourself. And they're trying to always take the emphasis off yourself. Just kind of anything they can do to, like, you make a good point, to the point where any type of thinking about who am I, what do I actually want to do, what goals do I want for myself, like, that's discouraged. They say, no, we will tell you who you are, we'll tell you what your goals are. And so it's like, I think they end up implanting those ideas in your head, and it's,
that's right.
It's hard time sorting out who am I versus who are they telling me to be. And I think it's just it becomes, in my head, it was like a tangled mess, so it takes. Oh, go ahead.
And what I found is that when you're not being your authentic self, there's a battle that's going on inside of you. There's definitely a battle that's going on inside of you, and that manifests itself in so many ways. I remember but shortly after I left the organization, I shortly after I woke up, which was about a year and a little bit after I left, I started reading Stephen Hassan's book, Combating Cult Mind Control. There was I can't remember what the chapter it was, but he was speaking about your authentic self. And he said that you can't completely eradicate someone's authenticity. It's always there in some way, shape or form, even if it's really, really small and very, very suppressed. It's still there, and it can always be brought back. And a hallmark of cults and high control group is that they try to rewrite your personality.
Mm-hmm.
They try to rewrite your personality. So just as you were saying that, no, we're going to tell you what your goals are. We're going to tell you what path in life you should take. You know, that's exactly what that is.
Yeah.
It's trying to rewrite your personality. And times when I was unhappy with the truth, unhappy with the organization, and when certain things didn't sit well with me, that's because my authentic self was trying to reject that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it was trying to reject those efforts of being rewritten.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I think there's, it's true. It is like a battle going on, you know, and I think for me, I definitely went through a period where I just didn't fight in a way, you know, and that was when I was supposedly doing really good in the organization, you know, just because I basically, well, I guess this is the best way of life, so I might as well get busy trying to live it, you know. It's kind of because that's what they tell you, you know, best life ever, and you'll be happy. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll do that then. I'll do that. And I, you know, kind of like we talked about before, I made it for a while and, you know, climbed the rungs within the organization just so I could fall even further than than you can imagine. But yeah, it's just, I think it's really good to think about. I think it's good just to think about in general life now. Even after leaving, I think we can learn lessons from it, you know, because there is the opportunity for it to happen not being a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, just trying to fit in and go along with kind of the group and you know, different aspects of life where all these same mechanisms play themselves out. And so I think like I've tried to like keep that in mind. Like, okay, I've lived that, I've learned the experience, I broke free from that, and you can kind of use that experience to make you stronger if that need arises in the future. You know, so it's you know, it's of course challenging again, but there's a lot of you kind of can build strength and learn. It's a learning experience too. But
leaving the witnesses, it's, you know, it leaves a huge vacuum. There's a huge vacuum that's this organization-sized hole that's in your life, and so you're already, and because it's such a high control group, you're already primed after you leave to being susceptible to that kind of influence again. And it's something I've seen a lot in the ExJW community. You see a lot of people fall down the rabbit hole of, you know, conspiracy theories or leaving one cult and jumping straight into another, you know. And it's really sad when you think about it. It's sad. But it's something that I try to be mindful of, you know, all the time, because I don't want to end up doing that. I don't want to end up jumping into another cult-like situation because of the, you know, the disposition that I have as a result of being raised as a witness.
Yeah, good point. And I have a cure for saying the truth. So at some point when it's safe, you know, I know we're in a pandemic, but when it's safe to get together with some fellow ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, do so. And then every time somebody says the truth, somebody has to do a shot. And if you spend an evening and a long night like that, the next morning you'll be broken of the habit of saying the truth.
That's a brilliant idea.
You'll have the truth hangover the next morning, and that'll take care of that. So that's what I found as a cure, anyways.
Brilliant. I'll have to try that when we're allowed.
All right. Hey, it was really nice talking with you, Riley. Hopefully we can meet up again sometime soon. And thanks to everyone out there who was watching, listening. Appreciate everyone's support.
Thank you so much for watching to the very end of the video. If you haven't already done so, please like, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. If you like my work and want to help me continue doing it, please support me on Patreon at patreon.com/Jexit_2020. And with that, I'd like to sincerely thank these very special patrons who make these videos possible.